Okay, this is Chapter 10, Lesson 5. Our essential question is how fractions and decimals are related, and we're going to be working with decimals and fractions. So our first example, Kara travels 7/10 of a mile from her bus stop to the next stop. Write 7/10 as a fraction with a denominator of 100. Then write the fraction as a decimal. So first, we're going to write 7/10 as a fraction with a denominator of 100. So I can model it using the grids that they've given and my drawing. So if I were to model 7/10, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to extend this line all the way down just to show that's how far it should go in this one as well, because we need to make them equal. And if I'm shading 7 columns, regardless of whether I'm doing bars or the full grid, that one was awfully close, you'll see that 7/10 is equivalent to 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 hundredths, which is what they're showing right here. So if I'm drawing, how many squares did you shade on the hundredths grid? I would be shading 71. Whoops. Let me try that again. 71 hundredths. Okay, and in order to show that as a decimal, it would be written 0.7. The other alternative is 0.70. That would be 70 hundredths, but this decimal is irrelevant, so we don't have to write that. So that's how we would convert this 7/10 to 100ths and into the decimal form. Okay, so this one is exactly the same. They're showing 9/10, and then you should shade this one, and then you should show 90 hundredths on this one, and then you'll see 9/10 is equal to 90 hundredths, which is equal to 0.9, because we would read them all in word form, 9/10 and 9/10. This one you'd read 90 hundredths, but when you look at your models, you'll see that they're shaded in exactly the same. Okay, so here we're going to write, they have the fraction for us, then we're going to write with a denominator of 100, and then you're going to write the decimal version. So that's how these are done. Let me look, see if there's one I want to do with you, but since these are exactly like the examples, I don't feel the need to show that. You should be able to figure that one out. Okay, so 3, 4, and 5 are breaking it down a little bit more. All they want you to do for the first step is to show it over 100 on the line here, and then they make the decimal version the answer down here. So instead of writing them all on this one, you're going to write the fraction here and the decimal here. So that's how these 3, 4, and 5 are set up. Circle the equivalent ways to represent each number. So I have to look and see what are all the possible ways to write each of these fractions of a whole. So I'll do one just for fun. 30 hundredths is one way. 3/10 is equivalent to that. 30 hundredths is this fraction in word form. 3 hundredths is not the same as 30 hundredths, because the denominators are same, but the numerators are different, so those can't be the same. This would be read as 3 hundredths, which is not what we have here. This would be read as 3/10, which is what we see here. So this one would also be correct. So I've done number 10. You're going to do the exact same thing for number 9, 11, and 12, and that'll get you through the practice. Okay, so they're asking you different questions on these problem solving, and if you're not paying attention, you might do the wrong thing. So here's saying Wesley learned that 3/10 of the students in his class are left-handed. Oh, that's cool. Yay, lefties. Write 3/10 as a fraction with a denominator of 100 and as a decimal. So you're going to write it 2 answers for number 13. How is it with a denominator of 100 and written as a decimal? This one, they're just asking you for the decimal equivalent. You don't need to write another fraction for this one, just the decimal. And this one, it's asking you for both again. Write it with a denominator of 100 and write it as a decimal. So 13 and 15 are the same, but 14, it's only asking you for one of those, which is the decimal. Okay. Number 16, write a summary statement about decimals that are equivalent to fractions with denominators of 10 or 100. Okay, so basically what it's asking you here is, since 10 and 100 are, like 100 is 10 times greater than 10, if we have a fraction with 10 as the denominator, we can make it into one that's 100th. You just have to remember what you're going to change about the numerator when you do that. So anytime you change the denominator, whatever you multiplied by, you're going to have to do the same thing to the top. And that's how you're going to change any denominator that's 10 to 100, hundredths. Hopefully that makes some sense. And for number 17, it says, how can I identify the shaded part of a hundredths grid as a fraction and a decimal? Well, basically the fraction and the decimal both show the same thing, just in a different way. So as long as you can count, you can make it into a fraction and a decimal. The only question is whether you're dealing with bars, and that would be tenths, or a full grid, which would be to the hundredths place. So basically, because fraction and decimal are the same thing, they're just both representing parts of a whole. That's how you can identify them. And I would just double check the homework, because this lesson was something that you probably will have enough time to get through the homework as well. And I noticed this one's kind of cool. Find the error. Okay, so this is a really common mistake that a lot of people make when they're doing their equivalencies. So really pay attention to this, and if you can't see right away what the error is, then go back to the first examples and look again to see what is wrong with this one that makes her answer incorrect. She's got these two are equivalent, but both of these are not equivalent to this, and that's what you need to figure out and explain on the lines. And when you get to number 6 on the homework, only one of these 4 fractions here is equivalent to 8/10. So figure out what that one is. If you can do this one, then maybe that will help you solve number 5. You can go back to it and look at that. Keep up the great work, and we will check this later on.